Hi, my name is Lauren Diapoli, and this is a presentation for APN 620 regarding utilizing motivational interviewing to assess patient readiness. In this presentation, we're going to explore the health belief model and other theories of change to assess the unique needs of individuals and to determine intervention strategies. We're going to discuss the role of empathy, active listening, acceptance, and overcoming communication roadblocks in developing a supportive therapeutic relationship. And we're going to address how to roll with ambivalence and promote a process of self-actualization by applying motivational interviewing skills. Developing a therapeutic relationship, many collaborative steps are required to really get the ball rolling. Through open-ended questions, we assess the patient's perception, and through compassionate, non-judgmental, reflective statements, we clarify and verbally acknowledge the patient's feelings. Ultimately, the focus of every counseling session is the individual. Each line of therapeutic narrative and all reactions should be aligned with what matters most to the patient. So the patient's concerns and goals are the direction we need to go in regarding our questions and reflections. Assessing a patient's readiness to change can be done according to numerous different stage of change models, theories, and therapeutic techniques, but we can utilize motivational interviewing to assess them. This is one example of a theory of change. This is the trans-theoretical model. Just looking at the left side here, we assess where a patient is on this model, and that should help us determine how to move forward with our intervention. For instance, if the patient is in a pre-contemplation stage where they are lacking any desire to change and they have low readiness, we're not going to jump into cues to action or provide them with educational information and prepare them for changes because they're not even contemplating the change yet. So if a patient comes in a stage of action and they are looking for cues to action, we can provide ways to help them with that. So it's really about personalizing the approach. The health belief model is another theory of change that focuses on the patient's perceived seriousness and their own perception of the severity of their condition. And this model implies that where the patient falls in the process of change determines the effectiveness of the outcome. This type of assessment also helps us build appropriate intervention strategies. So this is the health belief model here. All these different variables come into play, and they create for the patient their perceived benefits to making a change and their perceived barriers to following through with those changes. This also can create the perceived threat that they have to not making a change and also determines their level of self-efficacy. All of these things determine the likelihood of engaging in the actual health promoting behavior. So if a patient comes in and their perceived benefit to making a change is very low, they don't think making a change will matter, and the perceived barrier to making a change is high, they don't think they're going to be able to make the change, the likelihood of them engaging in a health promoting behavior is low. So we need to assess where they are and then tailor our approach to that. So if their perceived benefit is low, we engage in conversation that helps them highlight the benefits of making a change. And we provide them with opportunities to express how the barriers and try to lessen the weight of those barriers, making the likelihood of their self-efficacy and their likelihood of engaging in health promoting behavior higher as we move forward with communication. So motivational interviewing is a client-centered approach that we would use to engage in the early stages with a client that shows ambivalence. So if a client is, their perceived benefits are low, as I mentioned before, they are an ambivalent patient, and we can use motivational interviewing to engage in conversation that guides them but never directs them. We use reflection and reframing of the patient's statements and views to help them grow in self-awareness, and we roll with resistance by just restating their concerns and their perceived barriers. The spirit of motivational interviewing is the intention to engage in communication that is compassionate, accepting, collaborative, and evokes the patient's commitment to change at their own pace. Applying the principles of motivational interviewing, we express empathy, we roll with resistance, we never fight it, we support self-efficacy and autonomy, and we avoid argument and confrontation. Ultimately, we're trying to develop discrepancies between the patient's goals and their current behaviors. So if they're trying to lower their blood pressure, but they are eating high salt fast foods every day, we want to get them to basically express that there is a discrepancy between the outcome that they're looking for and what they're actually doing. Building a rapport that's going to benefit our patients requires empathy. Some of the ways that we display empathy are compassionately acknowledging the patient's viewpoints with reflection, verbally observing ways that they've succeeded, highlighting their strengths, and showing a genuine desire to help in a collaborative process where we're proposing a shared purpose. We're not giving them our goals or desires for them. We're helping develop their own shared purpose between the patient and the provider. Facilitating conversation that is free of judgment helps to build a sense of alliance between the patient and the provider. Patients with low readiness to change are benefited by a process that compassionately moves them through a process of self-reflection. So for instance, if a patient expresses they began to eat candy every night, but they don't think it contributed to their recent weight gain, making a clarifying, non-questioning statement can be very helpful. No inflection, no questioning, just you don't think eating candy made you gain weight. Just reiterating what they've said. We must always be present and attentive when working with our patients, carefully listening and making appropriate eye contact, giving them undivided attention, and avoiding interrupting them. And this allows us to get an idea of the complexity and the cognitive processes that direct our patients in their decision making. We have to have genuine understanding and acceptance of our patients without criticizing or blaming them. We're only mirroring, echoing, or paraphrasing what they've said to us and affirming their thoughts and feelings, always resisting our urge to correct them. A recognition of the patient's perception without judgment creates an environment where they actually feel safe to openly and honestly express themselves, and that's obviously what we want. There are some roadblocks that can inhibit our relationship with our patient. So we have to become aware of those and assess what those roadblocks might be and adjust our techniques if necessary. So we might need to utilize a translator or get reading materials that are written in either their reading level or in their language. I've provided here a nutrition label in another language. So I don't speak this language. This is almost useless to me. Of course, as I'm studying nutrition, I know what some of these things are. I can assume that this is calories here, and fat, but ultimately this is not helpful for me. So handing a Russian-speaking individual who only reads in Russian an English nutrition label is useless. So we're constantly assessing different ways we can tailor our approaches to meet the needs of our patients. So to conclude this presentation, empathy, compassion, and acceptance are the fundamentals of developing an effective therapeutic relationship. Without them, we're not going to be able to benefit our patients. Guided self-reflection questions help build insight into the conditions that the patient has developed and helps build patient awareness and should help us adjust our intervention strategies. Our overall goal is to facilitate a conversation that encourages our patients to engage in change talk and become self-sufficient in making healthier decisions on their own. Here are the references that I used to create this presentation, and here are my photo references. Thank you very much. I hope this has been beneficial, and I hope you have a great day.